Thank you, Daria, for that kind invitation. It's really a pleasure to be here today, this afternoon. As has been said before, also intimidating to be in the closing panel in this esteemed room of colleagues and friends. I'll do my best with my jet lag. I envy our photographer. Up there. Thank you to ILEK and especially to Lucio for the invitation, and to everyone who has made this special event possible in the celebration of Frei Otto's 100th birthday, as well as his pioneering work in lightweight structures, and especially his vision for a more humane, empathetic, and ecological architecture. As has been richly documented and demonstrated over the last 2 days, the mentors and educators that we encounter shape us and the pathways that we pursue and make. And sometimes we are fortunate enough to work with someone as generous, wildly creative, and brilliant as Frei Otto. My approach to lightweight construction through biosynthetic design has indeed been impacted by my mentors and peers who share synergies with the orbits and legacy of this institute. At the University of Pennsylvania, I was fortunate to study under and eventually teach and work with Cecil Baumond, a pioneer of form and algorithm and founder of the Advanced Geometry Unit at Arup. I learned the power of generative processes and an algorithmic approach to design. It was during this time that I also met Lucio, who took a break from his PhD work here at ILEK to pursue an MArch at Penn, where he took an advanced research studio that was co-taught by Cecil and myself. In developing a biosynthetic and generative design methodology, important historical and contemporary engineers and architects have been an inspiration to me in the concurrent development of a generative design philosophy, including the structural designer Robert Lericolet, certainly my mentor Cecil Baumond, architect Anne Ting, who was the geometer for Liu Kahn, and of course, Frei Otto. Concepts such as beauty in failure and design processes that learn from concepts of morphogenesis, building with holes, and porosity generate connections among these important protagonists. Here we see Lericolet transforming a radiolarian into a space frame in an early 1940s article on geometry and topology, and later optimized and parameterized into exquisite, rationalized structural models. I've also been fortunate to help shape and participate in impactful peer groups such as the International Smart Geometry Group. This is a photo that was taken in 2005 at the first Smart Geometry Conference in Cambridge, UK. It's hard to believe that this was nearly 20 years ago. This was also when I first met Occam, and many others that have become an international family of colleagues and a community of pioneers in parametric and computational design. Gatherings such as this celebratory symposium and the Smart Geometry conferences are critical to advancing our field, sharing knowledge, building relationships and friends, and breaking new ground. And as I shared during the status seminar for the CDC while a visiting professor here at ILEK in the fall of 2023, you never know what may happen next or who you may be sitting next to and where they may go next. It was during this 2008 Smart Geometry Conference where I was leading a workshop that I took a break from generative components, GC. Who in this room remembers GC? We're all a bit dated now. We're the OGs. One of the first pieces of parametric software, later made much more accessible, intuitive, and community-driven by David Rutten and McNeil with their launch of Explicit History, and quickly renamed to the catchier Grasshopper. I took a break and wandered over to see the Munich Olympic grounds for the first time. I spent the entire afternoon covering every inch of the park, marveling at the complexity generated through simplicity and specified, importantly, by an open architecture in reciprocity with its environment and inhabitants. What were we doing in 2008 that was as current and contemporary as this? This experience, coupled with the intensity and special space of experimentation present in smart geometry, as well as Acadia, which was more about a burgeoning and pioneering discourse around parametric design than the software itself, made a deep impression upon my next steps. As we adopted words from science such as dynamical, emergence, and complexity to make sense of what we were seeing on the screen, I turned to science and especially to biology and material science to deepen my inquiry. In my short talk, I will address 3 topics, the first being meaningful and rigorous transdisciplinary collaboration towards a biosynthetic paradigm at the intersection, importantly, between design, technology, and science. How this translates then into impactful practice for diverse societal benefit, and how pioneering design methods and technology, informed and inspired by natural systems, can produce powerful results, as we have seen and has been demonstrated over the last 2 days. This is framed by 3 distinct domains that have resonated certainly over the last 2 days as well: learning from nature, mimicking nature, and collaborating with nature. Architecture has always been obsessed with nature, but the bio-informed, generative, and systemic design processes that Frei Otto championed and is what resonates and connects many of us in this room today. We simply just have better and more powerful tools to calculate, simulate, and form fine, and certainly pressing problems and questions to encounter. This is the space where new design strategies for biomaterials, manufacturing technologies, and more broadly, new discourse on what architecture can be emerge. I'll touch upon only a few of these research topics that frame the foundation of my lab at Cornell and my applied practice work. In the first domain, I touch upon the foundation for my collaborative work and how nature as teacher has impacted my thinking, teaching, and research and applied practice. Here we learn specifically from cell and biological systems to produce ecological design models and material analogs for reciprocal and bio-informed processes and thinking and design. This approach that the Sabin and Jones Lab Studio that I co-founded at the University of Pennsylvania over 20 years ago continues to be developed in my practice and through fundamental research now at Cornell, where we couple architectural designers with engineers, material scientists, and biologists within a research-based laboratory studio, a space that's about respect, about sharing, and learning how to communicate across disciplinary boundaries. Now, certainly a seminal reference for this work, as some of you have seen before, is the biological extracellular matrix, which is a dynamic protein network that physically and chemically couples the exterior environment of the cells with their interior environment and vice versa. So the big idea here is that half the secret to life resides outside of the cell. So you have DNA or code, but that code is acted upon by external architectural events within its environment. So this notion of a dynamic reciprocity in the formation of form, of dynamic feedback networks, deeply impacted my thinking at an early portion of my career. In the beginning, design and specifically parametric spatial modeling and visualization of biological data sets served as a bridge and a connector. I was actually overwhelmed and humbled by what we could bring to the scientific process. Importantly, we work digitally and still work with physical models and large-scale installations to understand the dynamic and hidden structures of these resilient data sets. In new work funded by the National Science Foundation, hopefully that continues, with principal investigator Adrienne Roeder, my lab is focusing on how emergent system dynamics generate adaptable, robust, and resilient forms. A driving question is, how do initially varying cellular compositions become refined during morphogenesis into tightly ordered, adaptable, and resilient functional forms? And we're looking at this across disparate biological systems, including hearts and flowers and the human brain. The primary hypothesis that we have formed is that the emergence of occurs through an iterative, cyclical network of cellular interactions connecting the system with the environment. Over the years, this has led to a deeper understanding of cellular surface design and morphology, which has translated into my collaborative biosynthetic design methodology, including, most recently, how we can reimagine lightness in solar fabrics and PV skins. This is our phase 1 project, Helioskin, which is funded by the National Science Foundation Convergence Accelerator. And unfortunately, just this past Friday, we learned that phase 2 will be cut. This is just a short video highlighting the project. So we're actively looking for alternative funds. Helioskin is a super exciting new project where together we are bringing solar to life. With a number of amazing scientists, we've discovered that the best way to track the sun is at the global scale of the surface, rather than energy-hungry components that are mechanically tracking and potentially breaking down. We will have tracking at the whole surface and also working at a very slow pace.
Tracking the light is really efficient. We know that it benefits sunflowers, and so we want to capture that for solar cells. In Helioskin, we have a morphing skin that can do some light tracking to get that increased efficiency.
At that point, we'd be able to manufacture kilometers of photovoltaic and e-ink materials that are integrated on the same sheet, take those sheets and just wrap them around any object up to things like maybe a skyscraper. At the moment, solar panels are being implemented in homes, but people shy away from them. Part of the problem is the cost, and part of the problem is many solar panels are just ugly.
How do we make solar attractive so people actually find it usable and interesting from small scale all the way to building scale?
Imagine a skyscraper wrapped with these incredible geometries and forms to invite people to get involved, get excited, and fundamentally bringing people together, bringing solar to life. So at a time of ecological and socio-political catastrophe grounded on our deeply entrenched misconceptions of human and cultural dominance over nature, we believe that biosynthetic architecture has the potential to open new modes and approaches, importantly, for how we teach, how we conduct research, and how we practice. We focus on the contextual, material, and formal intersections between architecture, science, and emerging technologies to innovate a broad range of material systems and structures, from non-standard building skins, biobricks and tiles, and sentient spaces that are not only performative, but also generate what author Jenny Odell calls, quote, attention-holding architecture. For example, one of the fundamental questions that drives our work is how might buildings and their integrated material systems respond and adapt more like organisms do in their natural environments. In this space, generative design techniques emerge with references to natural systems through, importantly, a transdisciplinary collaboration and context through both analogic modeling of these behaviors and processes, and importantly, focusing on characteristics and behaviors such as flexibility, adaptation, and growth into architectural applications. We also integrate the premise that nature is resilient, not efficient, or at least from the way that we define efficiency and resiliency. We also embrace transdisciplinary design with a focus initially on problem and knowledge generation over immediate problem solving. And this is importantly in a collaborative context where processes are emergent and transforming across disciplinary contexts. And so with strong links between my lab at Cornell as well as my practice, we look at transformative spaces with and for diverse communities. And as Occam Menges stated in conversation with my students some years ago, and Frei Otto has championed as evidenced in the formation of this institute, we need more research and practice and more practice and research in order to impact and make changes to how we build and how we teach and how we make and construct. This interest probes the productive tinkering and misuse of digital fabrication machines, informed by issues of craft and making, to produce biosynthetic material systems and software design tools that hopefully have the capacity to facilitate embedded expressions in our built environment. Importantly, we also impact science, primarily through data visualization, spatial modeling, and advanced manufacturing, including 3D printed ceramic biotiles across various journals and outlets, such as the ones you see here. The second phase focuses on mimicking nature, or the transfer of material and geometric properties and characteristics present in natural systems, such as the wings of the blue morpho butterfly, into new, responsive, and programmable material systems that importantly are scalable into architectural contexts. It's here that together with colleagues in material science and engineering, we've been able to advance entirely new programmable materials that selectively filter particular wavelengths of light in response to human interaction, to generate new approaches to adaptive architecture and skins, as well as designing with light and energy. Or in the case of Polybrick 2.0, we turn to the mechanics of bone for inspiration and lightness, and the paradox of building with holes in brick systems. So why look at bone? First, at all levels, bone is adaptive to habitual loading, and this is particularly present within the cancellous trabecular core of the bone. So if we were to look at the cross-section of a CT scan of a runner versus a bicyclist versus a swimmer, the density of that bone would look very different based on those repeated load events. We think this is a pretty cool way to think about bricks. And this lattice undergoes constant evolution guided by its loading conditions, as you can see in this exquisite set of images. Natural load-bearing structures are characterized by aspects of specialized morphology, lightweight, adaptability, and a regenerative life cycle. And through our compressive analysis, we've demonstrated that our lightweight porous bricks outperform their solid counterparts. An optimal lattice for load-bearing applications would minimize the maximum deformation of the lattice and maximize stiffness because the forces would be the most evenly distributed to protect the lattice from breakage. The results of our simulation and analysis through these mechanical tests that you can see here show the ellipsoid packing lattices show higher stiffness per volume ratio than 11 out of 14 standard lattices we compared them to. The third and last domain looks to collaborating with nature. This work is focused on biodesign and biomanufacturing, as well as advanced technologies and AI, literally working in collaboration with natural systems, including human data sets, to open up new opportunities in adaptive and personalized architecture that importantly are in reciprocity with the environment. These last applied projects build over 13 years of work testing how these biologically informed concepts and adaptive materials can be applied experimentally in architecture to engage with diverse communities. And since 2012, we've been able to deepen and apply our ongoing research on responsive materials that engage the dynamics of light and energy, such as structural color, through high-tech solar active and photoluminescent responsive 3D knitted material systems. And this commenced with MyThread in 2012 for the Nike Flyknit Collective. Following several new projects, including Polythread for the Cooper Hewitt Design Triennial, we were able to take this work to an urban scale with our winning entry, Lumen, for MoMA and MoMA PS1's Young Architects program in 2017, which unfortunately is no longer continuing. The project featured over 18,000 square feet of digitally knit porous canopy structures, 3 42-foot tall tensegrity towers, an interactive misting system, robotically wound spool stools, and for the first time, we were able to test our high-tech responsive fiber knit material system with the actual context and the changing conditions of the environment. And of course, diverse public programming such as the popular warm-up series. In a recent project for a really innovative developer in Imcan in Abu Dhabi, we designed and produced a permanent public beach activation project, and this time collaborated with Gore, inventor of Gore-Tex, to develop an entirely new photoluminescent ePTFE material that can withstand the extreme climate of Abu Dhabi, including sand and windstorms. Our collaborative work also includes a significant human component, both in how it is made through a hybrid of analog and digital design processes and through the active engagement with diverse communities in architectural contexts. And briefly, ADA, a project in collaboration with Microsoft Research, also co-evolved in a transdisciplinary context. In this project, we were collaborating with human data in real time to spatialize and materialize changes in emotive states. In conjunction with this work, we were also exploring how artificial intelligence can personalize rooms and buildings. An important aim of the project is to expand and inspire architectural engagement with humans. And so while artificial intelligence powers the project through the precise narrowing and statistical averaging of data collected from individual and collective facial patterns and voice tones, the architecture of Ada augments emotion through aesthetic experience, thereby opening the range of possible human emotional engagement. In turn, the project, which is still permanently installed, opens new pathways for fundamental research on the use of AI to correlate connections between human sentiment and local environment. And hopefully, the project offers subtle and abstract interactions with humans through space, material, and form to augment and expand our emotional range in a specific context, which in turn affects the probable sentiment data being collected as new information. It offers an interface for personalizing architecture. It's a demonstrator project showcasing the capacity and future of architecture to promote and increase well-being through the direct engagement with the spaces that we inhabit. Biosynthetic architecture is about connections. It's about people and synergies across disciplines, including science, technology, design, and architecture and beyond, steered by the systemic and relational conditions of life, from DNA to sentiment as future adaptive and intelligent materials and the optimism of possibility. And so to close, find ourselves back here. During the fall of 2023, I was fortunate to be invited as a visiting professor, as Daria mentioned, initially invited by Achim as part of the Cluster of Excellence Integrative Computational Design and Construction cluster here at the University of Stuttgart. And with many thanks to Director Lucio Blandini, the Institute, ILEK, hosted my stay. My little desk was over there. I was constantly terrified of bumping into the original model of the Munich Olympic grounds just behind me. I took a deep dive into the IL volumes and now own the full set, thanks to Joanna. Along with 3 of my students, we were generously welcomed by the staff and PhD students here at ILEK. Here we are with Daria one evening testing Frei Otto's modified projector to view radiolaria in 3D through stereoscopic micrograph slides. And as we saw yesterday evening, adjacent to the tent is the first adaptive high-rise tower where demonstrator projects produced by ILEK, such as Hydroskin, the first hydroactive building facade, are tested and refined. And we're super excited to open our collaborative project, which grew out of this experience during my visiting professorship in collaboration with ILEK. And see a little 3D print up here. The project is a bioresponsive, digitally knit fabric structure that'll be sited on the 7th floor of the actuator. We currently have an immersive VR and AR experience alongside a set of drawings and models. The overall structure features a responsive knitted canopy that builds on much of the work that I just described, that engages with participants, encouraging occupation of internal spaces. The installation will respond dynamically to environmental stimuli such as movement and heat, creating an interactive experience that highlights the specific areas of the campus through what we're calling vision cones. This integration of research with applied practice that Otto championed and ILEK continues with the most advanced technologies, presents new models of resource efficiencies and innovations in sustainable and adaptive building facades. This type of integration and collaboration between research and practice across disciplines is not only needed, but necessary to inspire wonder, levity, connection, and collective participation alongside the ever-pressing, complex environmental, social, and cultural problems and injustices of our time. Thank you.